Dr. Lipman. It's good to see you and talk to you again. When we posted on social media today about our live chat and podcast to follow, the clip I used was a clip of you telling me that the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the way we live, period, and that we need to create new values. How important is attitude and mood and mindset in terms of not only getting through this both physically and mentally, but using it as an opportunity to thrive in whatever way to thrive means for people?
Yeah, I think it's key. I think having a positive attitude, however hard it may be, is really important. And where your mind goes and how you think is key. So yeah, having a positive attitude, dealing with the stress, not letting the anxiety take a real hold, dealing with the fear. Now, everyone deals with these things in a different way. You may need a therapist or friends to speak to. Meditation practice may help. Exercise may help. Whatever it is, you need to seek out tools to help you deal with this.
This is a really good question from Tracy. If you were living in one of the states that are reopening, what would you do? Would you continue to stay in, or would you head out into public spaces?
I would get the hell out of that state. I think that's crazy. I would stay in. I think until we have proper testing, it's too early to open up states. Unfortunately, what's happened, this has become so politicized. This should not be a political issue. It shouldn't be a right-wing or a left-wing thing.
Right.
It's become politicized. We won't get into the politics of it, but it's crazy. This should be a health issue. This is about staying safe, and until we have the tools in place, we should not be crazy enough to just go out and mix, because most people, not most, but a good percentage of people are asymptomatic and they could have the virus. So I think you've got to be very, very careful if you live in Georgia or Florida or any of these states that are, I think, being negligent, stupid, irresponsible. I mean, I can't say I feel strong. It's terrible. It's terrible what's happening.
Yeah. I have a more general question myself. With businesses reopening, which businesses do you see as safest and which do you see as least safe in terms of where the virus might spread least and most easily?
Well, I think the safety has to do with, businesses that can see you one-on-one and there's protection. I mean, I'm not sure how this is going to happen. Are people going to check your temperature when you go into a place? I'm not sure how helpful that is, because you could be asymptomatic. But I think when they're not large gatherings of, whether it's a doctor's office of patients or any particular business where they're not large numbers of people and where you can, practice social distancing, those would be the businesses that are probably fine.
And Hillary's asking, with non-essential surgeries coming back, do you recommend holding out longer to do those types of surgeries?
That's a good question. And Hillary, I would probably say if it's non-essential, I would hold out a little bit longer, yes. If it's non-essential, yes.
Yes, and Jasmine has a very specific question. If a seemingly healthy person flies from New York to LA and wears a mask, gloves, changes clothing, is that person safe to be with another seemingly healthy person in New York City without having to quarantine? Where are we at in terms of that right now?
Well, the tough part is, I'm not sure where everyone's at. The tough part with something like that is you just don't know, because you can be asymptomatic and you can still be spreading the virus. Now, what I will say is, if everyone wears a mask, that is quite protective, because you may not, if you're wearing a mask, it may not protect you as much. But if you're wearing a mask and you happen to be infectious, then you're protecting the other person. So the idea with masks is if everyone is wearing a mask, then there's a much higher level of protection.
That's right, if everyone is practicing the same thing. I have a question too. The CDC just announced a second, more deadly surge of COVID-19 coming this winter. Can you explain how your philosophy on health, with its long-term approach, is our best defense against this new reality?
Yeah, I think, there's one thing dealing with the virus per se, because the virus is going to probably come in waves. It may very well come, what they're worried about is going to come at the beginning of winter with the flu, which will be, pretty deadly for some people. It's going to come in waves in places like Georgia and Florida that aren't social distancing, so we'll get more and more outbreaks. But, what I'm saying, functional medicine doctors are saying is this is the time to build up the host defense, because the virus can take hold. The stronger your defenses are, the harder it is for the virus to take hold in your body. The virus needs a host to replicate and cause its problems. If that host, which is you, the person, has a resilient immune system, has an immune system that can cope with it, then the chances are you're going to have milder symptoms even if you do get it.
That's right. What's your take on this hydroxychloroquine Z-Pak combo?
Well,
what are your thoughts on that? I mean, what they're saying now.
A study just came out showing that it didn't help and it actually caused more problems. Now,
yes.
Now let's get it straight. Once again, this got politicized.
Yes.
I'm not against trying supplements, even drugs that may help if there's nothing else. And I'm still not against hydrochloroquine if it's used appropriately. But you do need to understand there are always side effects, and you have to balance the benefits against the side effects. And hydroxychloroquine has side effects. So
that's what I've heard. Really bad side effects.
Sorry?
I've heard that it has really bad
side especially effects. Cardiac side effects. So it's not a benign drug. Now, it can be helpful. It has been helpful in certain patients, but it's not something I would take as a preventive, and it's something you just need to be careful. I'm not saying you shouldn't take it or it's harmful to everyone. It may be helpful to some people, but there could be consequences. It's definitely not the magic cure-all.
Lynn is asking, at this point, have we done away with the fact that age is a factor? Everyone seems equally susceptible.
Well, no, I think age is a factor in the sense that as you age, your immune system becomes less effective rather than age per se. So if you, like I'm 65, I feel I'm a healthy 65-year-old. I feel I have a strong immune system. So I'm not worried about the number 65. But I think if you have an aging immune system, as all of us will in time, if you have an immune system that is not resilient, in other words, if you have sugar imbalances, if you're obese, if you have diabetes, you have heart disease, if you're not sleeping well, if your immune system is not as primed as it should be, you have more chance. It's not just age. It has to do with how effective your immune system is, age being one factor.
Right. Brian is asking also along these lines, is given the announcement of a more serious resurgence in the winter, should older people change the way they live their lives for the long term at this point?
I think all of us should change the way we live our lives for the long term. Old people, young people, everyone. I think we all need to adopt healthier habits that are going to support our immune system, sleeping properly, dealing with the stress, moving our bodies, not eating too much sugar, processed foods, not drinking too much alcohol. There are many things we can do to prime our immune system, to build resilience in our immune system. That's what we all have to do. If you're older, I think you've got to just take a little bit more care, because as you get older, your immune system function does drop a little bit.
I'm curious, is there a particular age? I mean, I guess is it all relative to that particular person, but is there an age where, let's say, immunity declines in the way that fertility declines at a certain age? Is there?
Yeah, I think that the age would probably be late 50s, 60s. But, I think it's the number is not irrelevant, but once again, I'm a healthy 65-year-old, so I don't see myself as a prime target.
You and I go over supplements at length on the podcast, which will be launched following this conversation for everyone. And from Jill, the question is, what supplements are you relying on personally right now, and which are you recommending for others, and why? We talk a little bit about this. But.
Sure. Well, we talk a lot about that in the podcast, but I'm relying on curcumin, quercetin, NAC, vitamin D, a little bit of vitamin C. What else am I taking? I'm taking some mushroom formula. I'm taking a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I just ordered quercetin and NAC per your recommendation.
I'm a big fan of NAC, quercetin, and curcumin. If you want my top three,
yes,
probably would be those three.
Yes.
But the top four, vitamin D, I need to put in there too.
That's right, yeah. Samantha asks, is there a rule for how many supplements, this is interesting, that can be taken in a day? Should we be aware of interactions like we do with medication?
Great question. So with medication, there may be some interactions. I mean, supplements are foreign substances or nutrients you're putting in now. Most substances are normal nutrients that we have in our body, and you're just propping them up. Some aren't. So, but theoretically, yes, there can be, some interactions with medications. It's usually not a problem, but it absolutely can be a problem. There's usually not too many interactions with other supplements, especially curcumin, NAC, and quercetin we're talking about. So I wouldn't necessarily worry about that. Vitamin D, yeah, you got to be. It's a fat-soluble vitamin. You've got to be careful of taking too much.
Is that why you have to be careful, because it's fat soluble? Is that property what makes it a bit more tricky?
Yes.
Brooke is asking that besides exercising, are there supplements that I can take to boost my respiratory system?
Well, NAC would be the one that I would recommend for that, because NAC actually can help loosen mucus. And it's good for the lungs. It's a precursor to glutathione, which is a master antioxidant. So if I had to choose one for the lungs, it would be a respiratory system. It would be NAC.
Fiona, now there were a lot of questions about food, actually. Fiona's asking, just how much does what we eat matter right now?
I think it matters a lot. I think what we're finding is people who have sugar dysregulation, obesity, diabetes, heart disease are the ones who are having the worst outcomes, whether it's in America or England in particular, because that's where the diets are the worst. So being pre-diabetic or having carbohydrate intolerance or some sugar dysregulation is a factor in how we respond. So please, guys, as hard as it is now, because now is a time where most of us run for the carbs. We crave carbs. Carbs are comfort foods, but you've got to watch the sugar, the processed foods, and the alcohol. And unfortunately, these are the things that we all tend to gravitate to in times like this.
Yep, we have a question from somebody with that exact question from Kristen. Why do people seem to be craving carbs right now? And what is your recommendation? This is good. What is your recommendation for a healthier carb to indulge in?
Well, we tend to indulge in carbs now because they're comfort foods. I mean, we've sort of grown up with, these delicious, sugary, starchy, sometimes, bad fats, foods, and our taste buds actually have been manipulated by the food industry. I mean, it's quite an art. The food industry has food scientists developing foods that make us addicted to these foods. So it's complicated. So what I will say, we do tend towards going for carbs. It's very difficult. You need to be kind to yourself. You need to have self-compassion, because don't beat yourself up because you're going for the carbs. That unfortunately is normal. If you are going to go for carbs, go for the healthier carbs. All vegetables are carbs. Sweet potatoes are a great, carb. What I always suggest to people is cauliflower rice or cauliflower mash, because cauliflower, when you mash it or you eat the rice, you still get that starchy feel and taste, but it's not a carb. So I'm a huge fan of cauliflower rice, cauliflower mash.
Yeah, me too. Jay is asking, what kinds of things are you eating right now? Has your own diet shifted, or are you eating the way that you always have? And if so, what does that look like?
Right. So my diet hasn't really shifted. I'm probably a little bit stricter because I love sugar. I love carbs too. I love dessert, but I'm having much less. So the way I eat, I usually have 2 meals a day. I fast most nights. So I've just finished dinner now. It's at 6 o'clock. I probably won't eat anything. I may have a cup of tea after this. I may have, my wife makes cookies with coconut flour and almond flour, and some monk fruit, so very little sugar. I may have that, I may not. But the point is, I will now fast for 16 hours. So my next meal will probably be at 10, 11, 12, whatever time I finish eating. So for 16 hours, I don't eat, and then I'll have a big meal at 11, 12 o'clock or 10 o'clock, whatever it is in the morning. I usually will have eggs, avocado, or I'll have a shake, and I'll put a shitload of stuff in the shake without sugar. And then I may have a salad, a snack, and then I have dinner. So I'm eating, as you get older, I've just written a book on aging. The less you eat, the better. You want to age well, eat less.
That's right.
So I don't eat as much as I used to eat. So I usually manage on 2 meals and maybe a snack in between.
For people that don't know, what does fasting do to the body, for the body? For people that aren't aware.
So fasting is actually a great thing to do now too, if you can, because it is a wonderful way not only to lose weight, but to help with sugar regulation. So I actually became pre-diabetic years ago because I was eating lots of fruits and lots of carbs. I was pescatarian. I wasn't eating any meat, but I was eating a lot of grains and a lot of fruits, and I thought that was healthy, and I became pre-diabetic. So I stopped it, and I became more paleo, cut out the sugars, cut out the grains. So what was the question again?
The question was, what was the question?
What am I eating? What do I recommend? So I recommend.
Yeah. No. We were saying about intermittent fasting and what it actually does for the body.
Right. So intermittent fasting can help actually even reverse pre-diabetes and even diabetes. It helps maintain sugar. It can help with sugar regulation. It can help with weight loss. It can help with brain clarity. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool for most people to use, and especially as we get older.
And like a standard intermittent fast is 12 to 16 hours?
Yeah, if you can get up to 16 hours, better. I would start at 12 and slowly build up, and I would do 1 day a week and maybe then 2 days. If you can get to 3 or 4 days a week, that's great. But if you can get to 16 hours, 3 or 4 days a week, I think you'll see incredible results to not only your weight, but to your sugar metabolism, to your brain clarity, to your blood pressure. And it's one of the best drugs I have in my arsenal.
And speaking of, you mentioned a shake in the morning or as a first meal. Just for everyone, we're linking to the pea protein that Dr. Lipman likes. We're linking that in the show notes for people who want to check that out and purchase that. So David is asking, what food and drink might aggravate the respiratory system?
Once again, any processed foods and sugar, I think it's complicated because you don't look at this as just a problem in the respiratory system. I think it's much more complicated than that. I think this is a problem in our, we're now finding out that the lung microbiome, all the bacteria in the lung may be a problem with this. But I think it's how you affect your microbiome in your gut too. Everything's connected. Don't see this as eating for your lungs. See this as eating for your health in general. And the worst foods would be sugar and processed foods. I would try and incorporate fermented foods. I would try and incorporate prebiotics, which are the foods that actually feed the probiotics. So prebiotics, what I usually recommend to people is eat the stalks and the stems. So when you're having broccoli or asparagus, don't cut off the stalk and the stem. Eat that, because that fiber that your body doesn't break down feeds that good bacteria. Yes. One last point for the lungs: you need to drink a lot. It's really important to stay hydrated. Drink water.
Isn't dairy not particularly great?
That's a good point. Yeah, dairy can, for many people, produces mucus. Not for everyone, but for a good number of people, it's mucus producing and actually can be a problem for sinuses and lungs. Good point. Whoever brought that up. Thank you. I should have mentioned.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this brings me to another question from Karina. What foods should I be cutting out right now? You've talked a lot about it. You talked about sugar. So sugar, maybe dairy.
Yeah. So I tend to recommend a grain-free diet as much as possible. No sugar, no processed.
As a rule, yeah.
No gluten for sure. Now, once you go beyond that, some people react to dairy negatively. If that's the case, you would know, then you don't have dairy. Some people react to grains negatively. If that's the case, don't eat any grains. So the basics would be sugar, processed foods, gluten would be up there, and corn maybe. But after that, you need to see how your body reacts to, because I eat dairy and I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
My daughter has dairy. She has a problem with it. So it's a personal thing.
Carlos is asking, would it be important to eat protein right now?
Great question. Very important. Actually, the immune system needs protein. So if you are someone who doesn't eat enough protein, make a good point of eating protein. Now, most of us get enough protein in our diets. Because I eat a low carb diet, I definitely get enough protein. So, but if you are a vegetarian, some vegetarians don't get enough protein. Just make a point of getting more protein because your immune system does need protein.
Do you have a go-to recommendation for protein for people that are vegan and vegetarian?
Yes, the pea protein.
The pea protein.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a lot on to alcohol. We have a lot of questions about alcohol. We touched on that on the podcast. We went in depth about that. So it's very interesting, sort of what we were talking about. We do a deep dive. But Karen is saying she's drinking more wine than usual and has heard that alcohol negatively impacts immunity. How exactly?
Well, I'm not, to be quite honest, I'm not sure the exact mechanism. The alcohol is a toxin. Alcohol, wine also is high in sugar. So for both those reasons, it could, it's going to negatively affect the immune system. I'm not sure of the exact mechanism, but sugar and alcohol, and maybe because of the sugar and alcohol, but maybe because of, alcohol is a toxin. So,
yeah,
I'm not saying don't drink anything, but just cut back, folks. It's just not worth it.
Right. Yeah. Andrea is saying, would you recommend cutting it out completely or having some drinks fine? And you're saying,
yeah, I mean, alcohol in the context of sitting with your family or your partner, and it can be a communal thing, and I'm all for that aspect of alcohol. I would probably recommend tequila, if anything, or a vodka and soda water, because it's lower in sugar. So if you are going to drink, I'd like some low carb alcohol. I would, if I drink, I'll have a tequila. If I drink, which I rarely do, rather smoke a joint or, eat some THC and the edibles. I'm all, rather have edibles.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Eric saying speed up or bring on brain-related conditions like addiction or dementia if you are predisposed. Can just living the way that we're living right now have any effect on those types of things?
Well, I think long term it may, because I think loneliness is an issue. We all need to be surrounded and have company and contact with people. I think sugar, Alzheimer's is being called diabetes 3 by many people. What they're finding out, that sugar dysregulation can lead to Alzheimer's too. Lack of sleep can, lead to Alzheimer's too. So this is why we're talking about, getting good sleep, cutting back on the sugar. Not only will it help your build immune resilience for now, but it will help you beyond. It will help prevent a lot of these chronic conditions that we all fear.
Yes. Jen is asking, during the COVID-19 pandemic, how much exercise should one be getting? Frank, you have an answer to this that I think some people might be surprised by in terms of exercise.
Yeah, I think you need to move your body as much as you can. You just need to be careful of arduous exercise or strenuous exercise for some people. If exercise makes you tired, then you're doing too much, because exercise is a stress on the body. Now, a little bit of stress, which we call hormesis, is actually good for the body. So moving your body, going for a walk, doing some yoga is good. And if you're fit and you can tolerate intense exercise and it doesn't make you tired and you feel good after it, that's fine. But you do need to, most people need to be careful of physically exerting themselves too much in times like this, because it's just another stress on the body.
That's right. Emily's asking, Dr. Lipman, I've read all of your books. Which principles from your books are most important right now? I mean, I guess this is just your overall take on things. On the podcast, we went over your
I think what I've been teaching for the last 30 odd years is what I'm telling people now. My philosophy, my advice has not changed. If you have my book, How to Be Well, it's all in there. I mean, that's how you should be living now, because what I've been teaching for so long is now more important. There's an urgency for all of us to actually take up these healthy habits, because what we were doing in the past, those default choices, the alcohol, too much sugar, not sleeping, working too hard, those predispose us to not only Alzheimer's and all sorts of diseases, but a weaker immune system, so we won't be able to fight off whatever viral onslaught there is.
Jane's asking.
So if you have my books, you got it.
Yeah, we posted the How to Be Well book on our social media. We have it in our shop on Amazon, and it will be in the show notes for the podcast. It's the Bible right now. It really is. Why don't you name the 6 keys? How to be well. What the 6 keys are.
So whenever you write a book, you have to put it into some type of in a structure so people can get it more. So the first how to be well is how to eat. This is what we're talking about. Eating low sugar, not too many processed foods, not too much alcohol. Exactly what I was talking about. A low carb diet. As you get older, maybe less protein. And as you get even older, maybe you can bring on some more protein once you get over 60. But for the most part, a low carb diet, not too much crap. How to sleep is the second point. What we're talking about, there are lots of tips in there on how to sleep. How to move, same thing. You need to move your body, but you also need to rest your body and don't exert yourself. How to chill out, or how to relax. Once again, we are all under a lot of stress. We need to have something that we can use to calm down the nervous system, whether it's meditation or breathing exercises, or yoga, or dancing around your living room. Whatever it is, you need to find something. Listening to music can be very helpful. So there's how to eat, how to sleep, how to move, how to relax. Then the 5th one is how to protect, and that's how do you protect yourself from all the chemicals out there. And that's basically to watch all the chemicals in our food, in our water, in our household cleaning products, in our cosmetics. And the last key, the 6th key, is how to connect to yourself, how to connect with others, which has changed now, because now it's more about social connections and FaceTiming, and it's a little bit of a different connection. And how to connect to the earth, which is also difficult now. But what I will say, why that's important, is we need to respect nature, because part of what's happening is, I believe, part of an extension of global warming. These things are going to happen more frequently now because of global warming. I think we are naive to think that we can't look after the planet and the earth and not expect consequences in humans.
That's right. That's a really good point. Speaking of your last key, Jane is asking, what kinds of things would you recommend incorporating into a daily routine right now if you were someone who's prone to depression?
Well, that's a great question, because I think all our routines have been, turned upside down. And I think routine is actually really helpful for getting through any type of crisis. So you need to just accept that your old routine of getting up early, going to the gym, getting your Starbucks, going to work, working, whatever you do, you have to change that. So somehow get into some new routine. What I would suggest for you would be, I would try go to bed earlier than normal, not watch too much TV unless you're watching comedies or something to laugh. I would, try avoid your phone and TV for a good 2 hours before you go to bed. Have some transition time, like a hot bath, listening to some relaxing music, doing some restorative yoga, listening to a meditation app, going to sleep, and then at the same time every night, waking up at the same time every morning. First thing in the morning, go outside if you can get some morning light. If you can't, sit at a window if you can to get some light. Try have your meals at the same time. Try do the work if you're working at the same time. Try do your FaceTiming with friends at the same time. Try make some new routines. I think routine is really, really important. And one last thing, be kind to yourself. Self-compassion. This is a time where we need to be kind to everybody, to our kids, to our families, to our friends, to the earth, and most important, to yourself. This is a very, very difficult time. You need to acknowledge it. You need to be kind to yourself. Don't beat up on yourself if you're not perfect. Don't beat up on yourself if you're not listening to what I'm suggesting. These are hard things to do, but I think starting to make the changes, starting to create healthy habits this is where you start.
Yes.
Start with being kind, and start with trying to create some routine, and slowly move your body. Slowly start doing some relaxation stuff, and do stuff you enjoy. Watching comedies. I think it's a good time. I know it's crazy, but I think it's a good time to laugh.
Yeah, right. No, that's very true. So Liz had a question. What advice do you have for people who are quarantining alone? And I think it kind of goes back to routine, right?
Yeah,
you said you yourself, you're adopting an even more of a routine now, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually fairly structured in what I do, but now every day is the same. Before, I worked 4 days a week, so my routine was different Monday through Thursday. Now I have a fairly steady routine. I get up early I have a new grandson. My daughter had a baby, so luckily we have the family here. The baby comes to us early in the morning. My wife takes the baby. I go and meditate. And then my day starts after my meditation. But every morning I'm up early in meditation. I take the dog out to play with the dog and run with the dog. And then I come do some work, and I have a routine. It's a very structured routine, a fairly structured routine anyway.
This final question is a really good one from Caitlin. What are you telling people who feel scared right now? What's your philosophy?
Well, I think everyone's scared. We're all scared. My philosophy is we are going to get through this. We need to accept and understand that this is a new world now. You have to let go of that old world. You need to let go of whatever life, and it's complicated, but it's not going to be the same. And we need
life as we know it has changed, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, right?
Exactly. I think so. What I suggest is we need to reassess our values, reassess what we thought was important, and now what we realize is important. Is it as important to get that new pair of shoes? Is it as important to go to that fancy restaurant? All those priorities are changed. So it's a great time to reassess what's important in life, our family, our friends, what fulfills us. So I think starting to imagine a life where you're more fulfilled, you're happier within you, you're not running away from yourself and your feelings. I think it's, as much as hard as it is, with all danger comes opportunity. I mean, with that Albert Einstein quote, I can never get it right. With each danger, there's opportunity. The ideogram in Chinese, the Chinese ideogram, crisis and opportunity or danger is all in the same. Yeah. So I think we need to use this as an opportunity to reassess our values, an opportunity to be kinder to ourselves, an opportunity to have compassion for others and ourselves, an opportunity to create healthier habits. Imagine the John Lennon song, Imagine. Just write your own Imagine. That's what I would recommend.
I love it. Well, what a great way to end the conversation. Thanks again for being with me and being with everyone. My podcast with Dr. Frank Lipman is now live, so tune in to hear more from him on this subject. We will link to it in Instagram stories. We'll link to it in the feed. and we have all of Dr. Lipman's recommendations for you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night.
Yeah, you too.